Advanced Health Sciences Psychology 2, Virtual Interactive Notebook 3, Day 6, Regulation of Stress. Previous efforts to figure out the YouTube thumbnail algorithm have failed, but I have a new theory. So my theory is if I do something weird and quick, that it'll show up as a thumbnail. So I'm going to do the weird thing, but I'm going to do it quickly. Ready? Ah! All right. Let's see if that's the one. Something with a pen. Ah! Maybe that. This is frustrating me. Today we're going to talk about the regulation of stress. The essential question is, how do we regulate stress? The main idea is regulation of stress. The subtopics are coping, problem-focused, and emotion-focused. This comes from Chapter 14, Section 4 of your book. We are almost home. Tomorrow is day 7, and that's it. First, we're going to define coping. Coping is mental and behavioral efforts used to deal with stress. Mental and behavioral efforts used to deal with stress. Stress is unpleasant. Your mind is motivated to reduce stress. We know that it affects your health negatively. So there are mental and there are behavioral ways that we reduce stress. Coping is mental and behavioral efforts used to deal with stress. So that's what I want you to write down for coping. There are two types of coping. There is problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping. So what that means is problem-focused coping seeks to deal with the stressor. If you can't deal with the stressor, then you deal with the negative emotions, and that is emotion-focused coping. So, for example, let's say that someone is throwing water balloons at me and I don't like it. A problem-focused solution would be I turn on my hose and I spray them until they go away. An emotion-focused solution would be I would try to find something positive in a negative situation. So maybe it's a hot day and I'm thinking, well, it actually feels kind of good to get soaked with water. So it's okay. And they just keep chucking water balloons at me and now I'm happy because I'm going to be able to cool down. All right. So problem-focused solutions. We perceive the stressor as something we can control. So if we can control the stressor, then we can do something about it. And again, this is like a locus of control thing. If your stressor is within your control, then you have an internal locus of control. I can do something about that. And then your mind will tend to think about ways to deal with the stressor. Now, if the locus of control is external, there's nothing I can do about this. This is happening from outside. Then your mind will seek to focus on the negative emotion instead. You can't do anything, at least you perceive that you can't do anything about the stressor, so you try to focus on the effects of the stressor to reduce stress. And that would be emotion-focused coping. So again, there are two types of coping. There are two types of coping. One is problem-focused, and that's when you perceive a stressor to be controllable, and then you identify the problem, you consider solutions, you weigh the costs and the benefits, and then you select a solution. That's what your book says about the process. I'm not going to hold you to that on the test, but I want you to have heard it one time. What I want you to write down is you perceive the stressor as controllable, and then you have emotion-focused coping strategies. And this is when the stressor is outside of your control and instead you focus on the emotions. So item 2 on today's lesson, these are methods of emotional coping. And I want you to write all these down, but I wanted you to be very clear about what they were. So you can look at the assignment sheet for today, or you can listen to me, or you can do both. So emotional coping strategy number 1, you avoid the stressor. So someone who's much tougher than you is throwing water balloons at you and your brain goes, you can't do anything about that. You're not going to stop them. Run away. Okay. So you avoid the stressor. You just go away. You can minimize the stressor. All right. So it's happening, but you can reduce its effects. You grab a trash can lid. Now you have a shield. You can distance yourself from the stress. All right. The way that I understand this would be more like in a working situation. So I do this all the time. Someone has a problem and I'm not going to fix that problem, but they're still complaining to me. I just reduce the amount of contact I have with the person, and I'll send them some kind of solution, and they're more likely to move on to easier prey. Just kind of socially distance myself from that problem. If we have some kind of friendship, maybe I'll just dial down the friendship, right? Just kind of, you're not all the way out, but you're kind of over there. So that's how I see that. Positive comparisons with others. I do this one all the time. So I'm at work, and man, 15 people want separate things from me, and I'm really frustrated because it's hard to keep track of it all. I think back to when I worked in a spa factory. I sprayed fiberglass on the back of hot tub liners, and then I rolled it out, and I did this for 12 hours a day. And there were people there who'd been there for 20 years. That's bad. This isn't a real problem. So I am thinking of positive comparisons with others. This is not the worst job I've ever done. In fact, it's the best job I've ever done. It does make me feel better. All right. And finally, seeking something positive in a negative event, right? So that would be the watermelon example. Well, I can't stop it. On the other hand, it's a hot day and I do feel better. So there's a silver lining here. So it's kind of the silver lining strategy. And we do this all the time. And we do these things naturally, but psychologists have identified what they are. All right. So we've talked about one self-care strategy, and that is meditation. And there are lots of self-care strategies, and I encourage you to look those up. I want you to consider another self-care strategy that's useful for reducing stress, and that is biofeedback. All right. So your book talks about biofeedback. This is somewhat controversial, but I want you to watch this video on a doctor who actually does biofeedback, and I want you to describe the process in at least 3 sentences. And I will see you tomorrow for day 7.